MTN, about the company, what is its future plans, what are they going to do, how are they going to get to where they want to get to, so that you have that understanding before you actually invest or decide to take part in the offer. So it is very important that you get access to the prospectus. It is available on the MTN website. It is available on the Uganda Securities Exchange website. So it is important that you read through that entire document. And secondly, it is important that you ask the professionals to get the right information before you actually invest. We commit, or as SBG Securities Uganda Limited, we are committed to availing and making and empowering you with information. So reach out to us at our email address, sbgqueries@stanbic.com. And we will leave the other contact details with Mr. Mboa here, so that in case of any queries and any inquiries, you're able to reach out to us. The last thing I would like to close off with is the fact that there are incentive or bonus shares available depending on the platform that you use. So if you use that MTN mobile money platform that I described and you apply for the shares therein, you will receive 10 bonus shares for every 100. And then for the other platforms, like applying through the USE Easy Portal, or when you visit or apply through your stockbroker, you will be able to get 5 bonus shares for every 100 that you apply for.
We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you very much, Nssf, for this platform.
Thank you, Salma. Thank you for that. MTN, you've heard. Ours is to give you the information. The decision is solely yours. The decision to make investments is a personal decision. It's a money decision that you need to take, but not take lightly. So we commit to bring you more and more of this information. And I think in the course of next week, I will be sharing with you all the names, all the contacts of all the stockbrokers that you can contact. You can walk into and then ask them, and you have a one-on-one discussion about your money. You need to have a conversation about your money. You need to have a conversation with your money. You need to have a conversation with professionals that handle your money. As Nssf, we are committed to provide, and I'm highly paid to give that information. But the decision is solely yours. Welcome back again. Today we are doing family businesses. But before we go on, allow me to ask the back office team to understand who we are speaking to before I take you over to the experts that are going to be taking over today. Back office team, who are we talking to today? Just kindly take off 2 seconds to answer this question. Are you male or female? We need to know, and we need to understand what's your age bracket. Are you below 20, between 20 and 30, 30 and 40, or above 50? The team here needs to know so that they can articulate their language to suit the age group they are addressing. Let's do that in the next 5, 3, 2, 1. Let's end this poll and we understand who we are talking to. Yes, dear panelists, as we come back to you, 59% of the people out there tuned in right now are male. The rest are female. The majority of the participants are between 31 to 40 years. Then the next, if I can move it a bit here. Yes, 31 to 41. Then the next is between 41 to 50. And the minority is above. There's no one below 20. The minority is above 50. So as we schedule this discussion, bear that in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about legacy planning. Legacy, what is legacy? We have legacy house somewhere. Legacy planning. Why is it something that we need to talk about? I need to remind you that as Nssf, we are committed to be of purpose to you. What are we doing? Our mandate is to take money from you, keep it away from you, and give it to you when you're eligible. That's our mandate, and we're executing that. That's why we are not so popular. But then our purpose is, if that money makes sense to you, the time you take it away, it makes sense to you. So in so doing this, we shall bring you this series. You have had that problem throughout your employment. By the time you are 55 and you have 70 million at Nssf, the mathematics suggests that you need to have much more on your personal account. Nssf should never be your biggest check. That is our purpose. That's if you have Nssf as your minority in terms of income, then as Nssf we will feel like we are being of purpose. But I'm paid to say those things. Allow me to bring you the experts that are not paid, but they have lived these things. Today, you all know her. She's not a stranger. Some of us call her Mama Becky. Others call her Jaja Becky. She's passionate about becoming a legacy herself. She's passionate about extending a legacy to her children. She comes from one, she needs to leave another. Different stories, she will let us know. She's a mother, she's the customer experience manager at Nssf, but to the FL fraternity, we call her LC1. Allow me to welcome Rebecca Mugisha Kabugo Namudu. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us.
Thank you, Apollo. All my names.
To moderate, she's going to be our moderator. She's speaking to two gentlemen. One of them, I've been getting quite a number of messages and they're saying, you are not putting the right face. You're not putting the right face. But there is a gentleman called Shem Bagaine Junior Sabiti. So I've been getting, I think my age mates were telling me, you are not putting the right face. We all know senior, but there is junior. Shem is the managing director of Bagan and Company Limited. He completed his undergraduate from Makerere University. He graduated in economics. He has masters in land economics. I don't want to finish everything about it will make you feel bad. But he's a registered valuation surveyor and he's a member of the Surveyors Board and a professional member of the Royal Institute of the Chartered Surveyors. Under his employment with Bagan Limited, where he has worked for over the last 20 years, another person told me, but why bringing young children? But this gentleman has worked for 20 years. So it is just we will talk about that after. He has had extensive experience and his highest level and he has achieved the highest level in the fields of property and facilities management, estate agency, development and consultancy, site acquisition, property valuation in Uganda and Rwanda. Key projects have involved over the years management of workers' house. While we are coming today and I was showing him basement parking, which I had never been to myself, having been here for 3 years, but it is reserved for VIPs like him. He was showing me all the signs he did and he was the one bringing me to this office. We are actually seated in one of his former offices right now. He has managed Aha House, Aha Towers, Inter-Service Tower, Communications House, Nakawa Business Park, Church House, House of Hope. So many. We don't want to sleep here. But allow me to welcome Shem Sabiti Bagaine. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
And another gentleman in his own name. Again, when you say Aga Sekalala, you need to differentiate. Junior, senior. So today we have the junior. Because we're talking about family businesses, we're talking about the people who have grabbed, not who have started. We shall have someone, when we have some who have started. Mr. Aga Sekalala is the ED Yugachik. He has done significant contribution towards the real estate. He is also, am I still reading? This gentleman's apologies. It was continuing on page 3 and 4. That was still shame. But to introduce Aga Sekala Jr. needs no introduction. We all know Yugachik. We have had Yugachik. And to my surprise, I thought it was only Yugachik until I had a chat with him. It stretches beyond Yugachik. There is Yugaville. There is fisheries. There is real estate. And Aga Sekala Jr. sits in the middle of all that. He is, and established man when it comes to poultry. I told people that I know people who have 100,000 chicken, and they thought I was lying. People today, you can testify. I know him. He has over 100,000, and that is just the parent stock, and he does so much more on the in the poultry market. Allow me to invite and welcome Aga Sekalala Jr. Welcome.
Thank you, Apollo.
The discussion is going to be family businesses, and it is not my place. I don't have a family business myself, but I hope to start one after this discussion. Let Mrs. Mugisha Kabugo take it on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Apollo. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, our guests.
Good afternoon.
You're most welcome, and good afternoon to all our listeners out there. And thank you, Apollo, for that introduction. I would like to share with this gentleman why I'm extremely excited about this afternoon. There is really mainly two reasons. The first reason is that when you look at our lives as we're growing up, it's almost as if we are being prepared for the marketplace eventually. Like our parents want to get that money and take us to school, but then we're in school and nobody ever talks about money. And then eventually we come into the marketplace, we are working, and even our employers do not talk about money. And the money is finally coming in, it's coming to us, but we don't understand the language of money. But as I go into the financial literacy world and everything we have done at the fund in financial literacy, we've discovered that there's cultures out there, like the Jews and the Indians. They talk about money at home. They start having these money conversations at home. So while their kids are 6 years old, 10 years old, they're already having money conversations. So when they go to school and they're studying and gaining all this knowledge and these skills, they know exactly what that will mean at the time when they're in the marketplace. So me, I'm excited because we belong to this part of the world, this culture that doesn't talk about money at home. And I hope that this afternoon, that's one of the things that we're going to hear from this gentleman, so that again we can tailor and customize that to our different circumstances. The second reason why I'm excited about legacy and financial literacy spanning across generations is because, again, when I look at myself and you guys, I feel like I belong to the 80% where there was that disconnect between grandfather money, father money, and here I am, Rebecca. You guys belong to the 20% that have had a success story on making sure that that thread or that mantle or that equation is actually still has momentum in your lives. You know, there's a statement, and that's why Apollo said that some people call me Jaja Becky, because when I came into financial literacy, there's a common statement, and I'll translate it in Luganda, that Jaja wange ali mugaga. It's a very common statement, and people are used to that statement. But we need to get uncomfortable with that statement to say that if I went to Aga's son, I think I see him there in the corner, he's just walked in, or if I went to Sabiti's children, they should be able to say that, you know what, I have my grandfather Shem Senior, I have my grandfather Aga Senior, and because of those guys, I'm on block 3 of financial creation, not block 1. Because the seniors started the block 1, you guys are taking on block 2, and then your children will talk on block 3. Anyway, I cannot wait to hear everything that you guys are going to teach us today. So for everybody who's listening in, who's out there, I hope you have your pens and paper ready. Today we are talking about the stuff of legend. For me, when I think about legacy and wealth creation spanning across generations, it's almost as if you're going to listen to a secret recipe. Yeah? The post-millennials can call it an algorithm. You know, that what are those secret ingredients? What is that secret recipe that has allowed the 20% on this side of the platform to have the thread spanning through and is still gaining momentum? So anyway, enough about my excitement. First, I would like to give the gentleman a few minutes to tell us about these empires, the Bagaine Empire, the Sekalala Empire. Maybe you get shy when I call them empires. But guess what? It's a success story, and it's okay to put that on your brag sheet. So just a few minutes to tell us, what is this? What are these business lines? Apollo has mentioned a bit of it, but perhaps people are in their homes and they're even consuming your products and they don't know they are tagged to these names. Now they're seeing faces to it. So I want to hear, where did it start? What is it? Who works for you? If I wanted to work for you, would I just find that vacancy on the website, or you only employ families? You know, do you even pay Nssf if I'm working for you? So all those things we want to hear. Tell us about, we'll start with Shem. Tell us about Bagan and Company. What do you do? Who does it serve? Who's your target audience, your target market, and what's this thing about?
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Good afternoon, all those people out there. Just a quick one to those who are in the bracket. I think they'd mentioned 35 to 40 something. I think you need to give your seniors a bit of a phone call, because I'm told the ones above 50 are the fewest. And I think this afternoon, I think they would probably learn a bit more from what we are going to discuss. So I just thought I'd throw that in. A quick correction, Apollo, I don't want to be mistaken on certain things. You mentioned that I'm a member of the Surveyors Board. No, I am a member of the Board of Directors of the Association of Real Estate Agents of Uganda. I'm the Director for Advocacy, and we're trying to trickle down professionalism to those members of the Ugandan society who've chosen a liking in real estate agency, and maybe didn't have formal education in that, but are keen and want to do it the correct way. The other professional memberships, of course, as mentioned, I'm a registered valuation surveyor, member of the Institution of Surveyors of Uganda, and a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. I wanted to make that clarification so that people don't get misled. I have had quite an experience in what I've been doing as my form of employment. As they told you, spanning 22 years. I've been fortunate to watch a very great person develop the delivery of a professional service that was not easy to bring into this economy, because it does have various complexities that people are beginning to wake up to now, but the steadfast approach he used really touched me. What we have today are two companies. Bagan and Company, which is a firm of registered valuation surveyors, and essentially provides valuation services to anyone in the market.
Including mass market?
Including mass market, including foreign investors, everyone. We have no specific target market that we look at particularly. I do know that there's been an impression created out there. It's not that it's not a truth, but at the same time, it blocks me from accessing the people who probably need our services right now more than anyone else. So I'd like to also use this platform to welcome anyone, however mass market you feel you are. Please feel free. We've done services for all sorts of people in the country, and our doors are always open to every single Ugandan. The second company we have is Bagan and Company Limited, and this company provides what we call the commercialized real estate investment consultancy services. Due to professional standards and also the fact that Bagan and Company is a partnership, those two elements present a bit of a difficulty in the sense of going out there advertising in newspapers, etc., and at the same time in terms of indemnifying our clients for property management, facilities management, development appraisal. So it is not bad that a partnership, it's not saying it's wrong for a partnership to provide those services, but it is better, it gives more confidence to the clients where it's a limited company for obvious reasons, legally based, because in a partnership you're relying on an individual who holds the responsibility, but in a limited company it is the entity of a company itself. So using that thinking, and I want to emphasize, it is not wrong, because law firms are partnerships and they manage properties and they're doing very well, but based on some of the principles we hold very strong. We two companies, one is 30 years old, the other one is I think a few years younger. And Bagan and Company was started 1989 by Honorable Shem Bajura Bagaine, who happens to be my father, and my names are Shem Sabiti Bagaine. So yes, the picture was the correct one. He started this profession long before he came back to Uganda. This was while he was in Kenya in exile, where he spent 24 years, by the way. He studied, became a valuation surveyor there, was employed with Tyson's as far back as 1970. He became a partner in 1974 and eventually became the managing director, the first African managing director of Tyson's in Kenya in 1978. As we will go on a bit longer, you will get to know the character of this man, who actually had a nickname in Kenya called Kinodhia. His friends knew he was not Kikuyu, but they nicknamed him Kinodhia because he had that go-getter attitude of the Kikuyu. That they are known, very well known for. So again, a sign here is in 1978 he was MD of Tyson's, but then in 1981 he went and formed his own. It was called Bagan Karanja, which later became Bagan Karanja Mbu, which is still an established firm providing exactly the same services we provide here, but in Nairobi. Yeah. When he came to Uganda, he first worked with Associated Consulting Surveyors, which by the time was being, and is still run, by the way, by Honorable Stephen Bamwanga. He was a partner with him. And then eventually in 1989 is when he formed Bagan and Company. And as I said earlier, the pressures in the market, many people were looking to invest in Kampala because of the fact that stability had just started coming in. Many of them were already owners of investments in the city and needed these to be revitalized. New tenants coming in, rental income assessed to what the market would support at that time. So this actually also, again now, is really what drove us into saying we have to now start offering the entire gamut of services. The estate agency, the property management, etc. And we started off with a number of buildings. I think the first one we had was UDB. Then there was UDB Towers, which became MTN Towers, and now has gone back to UDB because MTN has moved. Amber House, which is across the street. Shortly thereafter, we took on NIC Properties, Nssf Properties. Now we're managing UAP Properties, JW Interservice Properties, Communications House, Mapera House. There are a string of properties that we have been looking after in terms of property management and letting. We ensure that what happens is we make sure that the premise is available to let to the highest possible occupancy at the right rent. That's the market. We don't go and start saying, no, what is $15? We tell you $30. No. We look at the market, look at your property vis-a-vis what the conditions are, and say this is the best. And it's a scientific approach. It can actually be empirically proven that this should be the rent for this property. And then, last but not least, in that approach is the right tenant. You want to have the right kind of tenant for the kind of building you are in. We've had experiences where circumstances have forced us to accept to take on tenants who are not appropriate for the building, but it has actually shown on its own that they can, and the building eventually recovers. That is one of the areas that most developers really don't pay attention to, and they believe anyone who wants to run any kind of business should come into their property. No, I think, to me, sometimes I think it's even the most important aspect. What tenant are you getting in? What tenant mix? What environment are you creating? What synergies are you creating so that every tenant is able to stay in business so that they can generate enough revenue to meet your rental obligations over the period of time you need them to be there so that you can earn your return. So it's, again, like I said, there are complexities. People see these things from a very basic level, but there are complexities as you go deeper and deeper and deeper into what property management really is. Right now, we are managing a total of about 71,000 square meters of office space in the buildings combined, which is about 13 commercial buildings. Then we're managing 12 residential buildings. Some of those residential buildings definitely fit in very well with the mass market. And I think one of these days I will get my landlord clients to come and testify that indeed Bagan and Company Limited can serve the simplest person just as well as they'll serve the biggest corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are there, and we're also very proud that in terms of at least local content, we represent Uganda. In the manufacturing, my brother Aga here will say they are pushing for Bubu.
Yes. Buy Uganda, build Uganda.
Our version in professional services, that we represent that. We are 100% local content, and we intend to ensure that we remain that way and build local content so that every Ugandan who is in need of this kind of service can access it locally. You don't have to start running around going into very expensive ventures of seeking professional advice from without.
Sabiti,
Of course.
just listening to you, you know, when we're in the financial literacy classes and we are classifying the different investment classes for people to grow their money, you find that real estate is somewhere where the risk is high, but also the return is high. But the reason people worry about the risk is because there's a lot of speculation, and that speculation has probably been brought about by so many brokers in the market that bog down this industry. So it's very exciting to listen to you and how you have a scientific approach and a scientific model at arriving at, you know, the right pricing, the right tenant, and looking at the entire ecosystem of real estate. And for me, as somebody who's coming from the mass market, when I see all these buildings that have, you know, Bagan and Company, Workers House, King Fahad, Esami, I'm thinking, who am I to approach Bagan and Company to ask about, say, something that's residential? So I think even as we think about secret, I'm going back to that place, because again, I want people to understand that mindset and be able to tailor it to their own circumstances. That why has Bagan and Company close to 30 years?
Yeah.
Why is it still standing and gaining momentum even after 30 years, even after 20 years? Like you've said, a scientific approach, professionalism to the industry. But the other exciting thing is that you've seen somebody who has gotten their profession and built a family business out of that. Because most times when people think family businesses, they think informal things. They don't think structures, they don't think systemic and systematic approaches. And listening to you, that mindset alone can allow somebody out there who's listening to know that if you want this thing to trickle down across generations, then you must think professionalism, you must think models, you must think a data-based approach to, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to put up, and, you know, it will gain momentum over time. So I'm glad that I'm learning that from you, and I hope somebody out there is also learning.
I sincerely hope they are seeing it that way, because that is really the intention. What you've just said, it's also very important. Again, if people have the impression that Bagan and Company Limited is big for the big and so on, and still have a level of angst in terms of approaching us, we're not the only ones. We have fellow professionals in our industry. There are several valuation surveyors, and the beauty about it is every valuation surveyor is trained the exact same way, holds the exact same principles, and will provide you with the necessary information you need to know about your investment in real estate. This is very important, that when you are looking at money in terms of investing in real estate, it is very crucial that you involve a professional valuation surveyor. And I'm specifically stating that because of their day-to-day involvement in the actual machinations of the real estate market. With the data that valuation surveyors have is the market. It's not coined by them. They don't know. We pick the empirical evidence from the market, because we deal in so many different transactions and doing the valuations, etc. We tend to have the genuine information, and we tend to know where something is going in terms of rental income, sale prices, etc. On top of that, we are duty bound to understand our environment. What are the planning laws? What are the development plans, structural plans for whatever area we are working in? So we can advise you about certain aspects about your sites or properties or where you intend to invest with knowledge of the future. To a certain extent, we don't like to predict. It's not very healthy, but with the information we have, we know at least in terms of development, it's moving in that direction. It would be wise to consider investing in this as opposed to investing in the other. So I think that more or less I've really covered what we do. The only important thing I'd like to maybe bring out, of course, is over these 30 years, we've developed quite a good team, and I don't think we would have been able to have achieved much without them. A gentleman who is a senior partner in the company, the partnership, and also director in Bagan and Company Limited, Mr. Lawrence Martin Mugerwamu CC. The junior partners in Bagan and Company, Sam and Diana. Very interestingly, my sister Michelle, who happens to be our legal head. Our accounts team, Penelope, headed by Penelope. The property management team, headed by Alex. Marketing team, headed by Maria. Without those, and the funny thing is that we've actually become some sort of family in the company again, because again we have always had the leadership of Honorable Bagan, which principles of which we found to make sense, and we've adopted each one of us equally. So I think in a nutshell, that really covers what we're looking at going into the future. Is yes, we would want to be in a position where we can sit with the likes of Aga and tell him, can we look at your real estate portfolio, fine tune it for you on an annual basis? Maybe we can look at your tenancy agreements as seasoned property managers, maybe fine tune them. We'll agree. We are brothers. We'll agree on consideration involved there. But I would love to see that. I'd love to see people open their eyes and realize the existence of valuation surveyors is the secret in terms of understanding real estate. No other profession will help you as valuation surveyors can. And I think it is important that people take it upon themselves to. Those who right now from today, if you have a neighbor who's a valuer, go and ask him, go and have a cup of tea, go and ask him or her, what do you think about what I'm trying to do? They will give you advice that you need. It goes without saying. So I think with that, really, we've covered a little bit of what the business is. I also think I should mention the fact that, as you said, there is one, then there is generation 2, then 3. Now, and the background of one is, of course, he had a bit of a setback in having to leave Kenya, coming to Uganda. But it didn't stop him from making some investments along the way. And a further step we've taken now as a family and siblings is we've actually brought ourselves together so that we can run a business that can support the investments him and his wife made and enhance them. Some in real estate, there is agricultural production. One of these days I'll be attending seminars regularly with Aga. He'll be talking about chicken, but me I'll be talking something like beef. So we are looking at all that and trying to build up from literally from scratch. We're trying to build it up together as a unit, which I think again feeds very much into what we want to discuss today. Also, on the other hand, I am involved as a director in 2 areas of service my wife is involved in, Africa Customer Service
Sabit,
Agency.
you're getting ahead of me. You're getting ahead of me.
And let me finish and ask the paper. So that is the CV of what I do.
Yes.
The details will follow as we discuss.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too. I'll come back to you on family involvement, casting that vision from your father to the family, the teamwork, and all those things. Again, I feel that they're the ones that constitute that secret family recipe that has managed to take Bagan and Company where it is today. You're already thinking about the future, sustainability. But first, let me listen to Aga. I know every time we think about Aga Sekalala, we think Yuga Chick, but I'm sure you have a lot more business lines than that, and perhaps people are even consuming some of those products, but they don't know that they are tagged to this name. So again, let's hear from you about this Sekalala dynasty.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon to all the viewers out there. We, again, as the Sekalala Group, have a few companies that some of them were founded at a family level, as they say, were mom and pop businesses founded by our parents. Some of our older businesses include some trading companies, mostly trading in agricultural agrochemicals. We've got branded agrochemicals in the herbicides, in the insecticides, that we trade out of various distributorships. So some of them we import, trade. We have activities where we produce dairy, and we produce various agricultural food and things like that. We have a business which was started in 1989. It is vanilla production and export. Basically, it is a processing business. We work with about 10,000 farmers who produce green vanilla beans, and we buy these beans from them and process them, and then stabilize them and produce what is a stable product that we can export to the USA. We've got two markets, the US and Germany particularly, and we have been doing this for about 30 years now, that we have been working on these exports. So it's a product that we've grown over the years, and it is something that we're very proud of working with. It works with a very big ecosystem of farmers. Initially, when we started out, there were very many farmers in the Mukono area, and we've also developed a western wing in Kasese, Bundibujo, and even as far as the Congo side of the Uganda, next to the Congo border, where we have at least at any given time a minimum of about 10,000 farmers. We also have some farmers in Masaka, in Mitiana, who grow vanilla beans. One of our other businesses, the one that is more well known, is Yugachik. Yugachik is a poultry processing company. The company employs directly about 350 people, and indirectly about 200 people who work in the trade, who work in distribution, who work in contracts, who do contracts with us. And this ecosystem that we serve is quite substantial. It's about 35,000 Ugandans who grow poultry in one way or the other. And I say it's a bigger ecosystem of which we're one of the players. And essentially, we produce day-old chicks that are bought by farmers both in Uganda, in Kenya, in Tanzania, Burundi, Southern Sudan, and we also produce animal feeds, and these include chicken feeds, dairy feeds. We produce fish feed also. We also have a small demonstration fish farm, which we use to learn more about fish, and we also export the output of the farm, which is tilapia. We then also produce dressed chicken. So we've got an abattoir processing facility where we buy back from contract farmers the product after they've grown it, and so we sell them the day-old chick, we sell them the feed, and we do the breeding on our farm. So we've got breeding hens, and it's essentially like I tell most of my friends that it's a small chicken farm that we work on. But it is just one where we are at a particular point in the value chain. Of course, we over the years we've developed some small bits of real estate here and there. So I'm actually going to be talking to Shem some more about that. So that's good. I've also together with some friends done some media in the radio space, some networking, some more real estate also, and many other small businesses that I have been involved in. But it is a mixture of family. I fully run the poultry business, and I also I'm quite active with the vanilla. And I have brothers and sisters also in the business who work with me. and they are, they all take a role or a business in there. The business was founded by my father in the early 70s, together with my mother, and they had to slow down the business, of course, during the tough times of the 70s, but started to revive these businesses in the late 80s when I also joined after I had finished my university. I'm an engineer by training, and but I have spent most of my working life as a businessman. I enjoy that, and that's what I think my purpose is to do business. I think that says most of it. My father's life is very well chronicled. He wrote a book, Double Your Money. I recommend the people out there who haven't got a copy to actually go and get one, because he says it all for himself, and I think that it's hard for me to add on. We're hoping that we'll have a digital edition, which his grandson should upload anytime one of these days. So hopefully we'll have even the people that are unable to reach their normal bookstore be able to buy one from Amazon or Kindle or whatever. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Aga. By the way, I'm learning as you guys are speaking. Like I told you earlier, my grandfather indeed was one of those people that was said to be rich in his times. He had a coffee factory in Buyukwe. In those years, he used to be called to Europe just to benchmark his model. But one of the things that, and again, I'm picking this from you, because I'm looking at sustainability and I'm looking at that thread, how it comes from the seniors all the way to your children and your children's children. One of the things that I can say in my story was a failure factor, because they were able to hack the process and the timing was good and they attracted so much money, they were not able to sustain it. And one of the things that my father's family brags about is that we had enough money, we didn't need to go to school. But as I'm listening to Sabiti and as I'm listening to Aga, one of the key success factors, like the wind beneath the wings of these businesses you're talking about, is professionalism. So you can't be there thinking, I want to be autonomous, I want to have my own business, and I can just run things the way that I want. Because when people think family businesses, again, their mindset goes informal, and yet we need to learn all the things that are happening in mainstream corporate and tailor them or let them become the frameworks and the models with which we approach family businesses. And for me, that's a key learning from, even as I listen to both of you. So anyway, my next set of questions goes to that mantle, how it moves through the different generations. And I'll just go back to Sabiti, because you mentioned the big man, Senior, you mentioned his character. And I want to understand, what is it? Of course, taking you guys to school was one of those factors. But what is that thing that your father did, that he was able to cast that vision upon his children, and up to today you talk about it with such passion, and you want it to outlive you, to outlive your children? I can see you're all still spreading your wings when it comes to this business that you're talking about. What did Shem Senior do? Tell us about Papa.
Now I have to time myself, because
I will time you. I'll help you.
It's a lifelong story. But I try to do some summary on my reflections, and I think one of the first things I would say is, in terms of what he was doing professionally, he exposed all of us very openly to what he does. And the surprising thing is that he did that not in the sense that he wanted to excite or encourage anyone to do what he does, but more to drive us to consider all other options open to us, and only pick on this if we feel it in the heart. You understand? He did not say, now Sabiti, go, I want you to study this because this is what's going to get you here, this is how you go, then you do. No. He said, you do what you feel like doing. This is what I do. This is how it works. This is where the income comes. This is what you gain out of it. This is the feel-good factor of the profession and etc. But you choose what you want to do. If it is this, it better be your choice. That I think is the most important thing, because at no point did I ever feel pushed into it. Obviously, at the same time, it so happened that I think from when I could open my eyes and understand that that's a building, I just loved buildings. I just love houses. I love the construction thing. I was being teased by my son the other day that there are all sorts of pastime games you can, if you're in the traffic jam and you get the phone and you want to play some game to pass the time. Mine is actually called Designer City.
Okay.
That's how much I'm about real estate. It's something I just love. I just love seeing how cities grow. I love seeing how people put up developments, what happens to them, how they earn and everything. So luckily I also had that passion. But his exposure to not making me feel that I was being pushed into it was very important. When he allowed me to, or not allowed me, when he allowed me to choose it, he didn't now silver platter me. He didn't make it easy on me. I started, my first employment was as a driver.
Under him?
Yes. Then I became a messenger.
Okay. Going through the ranks slowly?
Then I became an estate agent. Then I became a tape measure holder. I just hold I wouldn't measure, I would hold the tape measure until I started learning how they do the measurements. Then I became what you call a valuation assistant. So I'd be able to do inspections of property and measure them and then sit down, show him this is how the area I've got, this is how I measured it. Then eventually I went into learning how to do valuation, but also at the same time I was going into my masters and everything. So I went and studied, came back, and over the years have now honed the skill. At the same time with property management, again it was a similar avenue. I was actually, this particular building found me when I was just a property manager. I was not a director, executive director of ABC. I was a property manager. I used to do the running around. And where I think the value of that comes in strong is when it came to my turn to take the leadership role of the team. I know what a driver goes through. I know what a messenger goes through. I know what an estate agent goes through. I know what a property manager goes through, and all the way up. I think that was also another very crucial thing in giving me exposure to all those areas, and also you end up learning and you gain confidence in delivering the service. And then more importantly, you are able to work with the people who are employed. Because you see, everything else can work, but if you can't work with them, if you can't give them that leadership, then it's not going to work. So that was another important thing. Of course, the other things, he ensured I was fully exposed to financial management, business management. Whenever there were board meetings, he'd make sure that somehow I'm there writing minutes or I participate, etc.
Sabiti, before you go to that point of exposure and finding your interest in that path, were your other siblings exposed as well? Was it by design that Sabiti, who's my first son, who even has my first name, is the one that has more exposure, so the interest comes naturally, or they were all exposed at the same level and along the way?
Yes, actually, all were exposed. Okay. And then that's why it should not come to you as a surprise that Michelle, my sister, happens to be working with us, because the same exposure was given to all of us. Okay. Of course, some went into medicine. Some are food scientists and so on. Not that we're not going to fetch them back and expose them again and say, are you sure? But yeah, we were all given that same exposure. He doesn't differentiate male or female, young or old. He never made that differentiation. Okay.
Because I'm just surprised that both of you guys are here. You both have your father's first names. You're probably both the first sons. So I was wondering, is it an African thing to pass on that mantle? Or, okay, I've had your model. Or is there a time when you had to discuss this at table and take a vote? Or is there a time when your father had to come home and say that, you know what, there's this vacancy, who's the best fit? Or, again, it was a natural path like what you have mentioned?
That's an interesting question. I think there is a little bit of an element in each. But the strongest element at play was it was let to run its course. There was no driving element that this is the first born son or eldest son and this is the one best suited. No, I think it was let to run its natural course. And of course, a very important element was the interest that I myself naturally had.
Okay.
Yeah, it was palpable. People could see it. And I think many of them said, yeah, ideally, anyway, he even has the same name and everything. Maybe he should be the one to first pursue it before the rest of us look at it. Like I said, me, it's not over.
Or you had the advantage of being the firstborn son.
I'm not going there. Then there were some other very important things I think were very special about the old man. Teaching us to love and respect and honor each other as siblings. We don't underlook. Whatever the person turns out in life, we are there. We support each other, we respect each other, we love each other. That he taught us. And that, for me, I think is one of the things as we grow old, I'm beginning to see is very, very important. You've got to develop your children into understanding that they have only themselves together to go forward in this life. That is a very, very important thing. And I think many families take that lightly.
Yeah, and yet actually what you bring to mind is, while I was reading up on this topic, I found some very interesting statistics, and one of them was that about 47% of family business owners who are set to retire in the next 5 years have not yet named a successor. And the reason why is because it poses a lot of conflict, and that's why I was interested to listen to how did it happen to you. Because if that exposure where every sibling knows that it's not a must for you to join unless you're interested, and then you do naturally somehow you do away with that conflict. You don't have to worry about it's A and B, why not C, why not the girl, maybe who might be more competent. I remember when Chris Kirubi died here in Nairobi, the Kenyan media was awash with how his only son chose to be in mainstream corporate, and his daughter is still running the business. So very interesting learnings here. But key is that the vision, Shem Senior as the vision bearer also made sure that you guys as a family are in sync.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That I think is a very, very important ingredient in the whole mix. I think the other thing which many people again undermine, but I think is very, very important is the spiritual element of it. My dad has a very deep-seated faith in God. He is a very devout Christian. And he's actually taught us principles, not by, and I have to say this a bit carefully, not by force again, not by force, but by exposure. And saying, well, when you make a mistake, he says that, in the Bible, this. So you're encouraged to go and refer to that and see what exactly is this, what can I learn from it? So I think that strength of his faith in God has also rubbed off on us, I'll say, and has also given us confidence that there is also a way in which we can attain our legacies adopting the same principles. I don't know if that makes sense.
I get.
So I think that more or less would generalize. You can go into very many details about it. But really, that to me are the key ingredients. There's one other that I think my age mates need to listen to.
Your age cohort being?
those who know me and those who are my age.
Okay.
And they better pay attention to this one.
Yeah.
I think the last but not least important factor is he taught me that when I leave his home, I'm making mine. Now when I reach there, he says your key resources are the people you make that home with. Many of us, and this is why I'm saying, you listen, don't be upset, it is the truth.
Yeah.
We don't bother to seek support from our wives and our children. Now, I will tell you, me, I'm a product in terms of managing people. The people I interact with at the office, the people I lead in employment. All those skills were taught to me because I sought them from my wife, who's a management consultant. And she's actually even been involved in doing team buildings with the staff and etc. So you take from that. And then I also encourage an atmosphere at home. Even just last night while we were having supper, we sit at the table and the kids were saying, you know, when you ask daddy for anything, his answer is,
Ask mommy.
No, why don't you write a list once and I buy everything once? I encourage that kind of feedback. I make it in as much an open discussion as a family, so that everyone feels confident enough to air what they feel. And from that, you tend to get both positive and negative feedback from your own members of the family, which helps you shape you. That skill, again, was ingrained in me by him. So there's a lot, and as we'll see even later, there's a lot. It's not only money, how you manage money and what money you leave behind, but there's also values and
Character.
skills, character that you must develop and also pass on. Yes.
True.
I think in a nutshell that is.
Yeah,
that is
actually,
about
I think as we note down our secret ingredient and the secret recipe, those things are coming through very strongly. And Sabiti kept going ahead of me. It's like you know what's in my notes. But circling back to Aga, we've had what Shem Senior did. I want to hear the role of mothers, the ladies, mothers and wives, in this mantle being passed on. When you were courting that lady that eventually became your wife, did she have to worry or be excited, about this responsibility? Because it's a responsibility, yeah? When you think about everything you're saying, what you have achieved, there's so much behind the scenes. There's hard work, there's commitment, all those that work ethics. But I'd like to hear, what's your mother's role in this journey, and your wife?
Thank you, Rebecca. I think you touch on a good point, because mothers, mine passed on a few years ago. My late mother, one of her strongest attributes that she ingrained on not only us but also her grandchildren was a strong gravitation to the Islamic faith, and so a value system built around the Islamic faith and values and what it stands for was very important to her. And we have found ourselves having to follow, and Shem talked about a little bit about it not being by force, but it becomes something if someone believes in it very strongly, and you grow up with that person and you're close to that person and you love that person, you find yourself living that life. You find yourself automatically in having a closeness, finding yourself with that closeness to your creator. And how do you do that? It is by practicing your faith. It's by prayer. It's by fast. It's by all the functions around religious rules and rituals. Religion also, in our case, or the values, help to create a boundary, and these boundaries are the things that you will not do, and the things that you can do, and the things that you very clearly know that, okay, well, I think that one I'll pass. Okay, that one, that I can't do because it's forbidden, and I think that there is an appeal to this life of no boundaries. I have no restrictions. I can do what I want. I am who I want to do. But I think it is not ideally a good seed for success. Yeah. So clearly, mothers also pass on, are also tend to be custodians of these family values. What is it that you need to be as a person? Humility. Think about hard work, kindness, empathy for the people around you, for your siblings, empathy for just the people that you work with, the people that you go to school with, understanding who they are. My late mother never had issue. I was one of those, who my friends always came home. I somehow I just managed to bring them home, and they just came, they visited, they stayed over. I had friends who stayed over a whole holiday. I had friends whose parents went to exile, and we just adopted them. They became part of our family, and they remain very, very. That's the kind of person that she. To her, it was. There was never a thinking, and perhaps it was that I didn't have like lots and lots and lots of siblings. Maybe that was one of the factors that would have helped, or would have been it could have been a high pressure point, but. Certainly, she was very welcoming, and that meant that as you grow up, you then some of these things trickle down into your life, and they become part of who you are. And it is with those that, of course, you have to add on. She never let us sit around a whole holiday. For instance, it was always, you got to go find something to do. There's plenty of things to do on the farm. Go on and take on a job, take on some activity, and she worked her whole life. I mean, she worked until 3, 4, 5 days before she passed on. So even so that's her life, and that is something that we emulate, and you feel. You have to follow, and you understand the value of hard work, and you value the love of work, and this passion about anything that you touch. So I think that's a key role. I think spouses are more interesting because we meet them as adults. And the difference is that part of your character is already formed, and this you've got to be, and so things like accepting the person that enjoys his work, has his own affiliations, sometimes has his own hobbies, and etc. is important. That enables you to be also to reach your maximum, and so it is the bouncing board. It is the person that you ask a question. It is the areas where you feel, for instance, that you might not be very strong at. I tend to be. I call myself a weakling when it comes to human resource. When it comes to people, if I interview 3 people, for me it's just 3 people. Sometimes it's a blur. But if I meet these 3 people with my spouse, very quickly she will see things sometimes that I can't see, and so I appreciate that, and it is important that you have that in mind. Some people work with a policy of having what they call a clear wall, a clear line, where they don't mix business and family. But if you're going to be a family in business, unfortunately, it is almost impossible. You have to. It is just part and parcel. But it's of course has to be done. I would say you've got to balance it. You've got to make sure that it is managed properly. It can't become an obsession. But done well, it's actually quite productive and quite useful. It's resources that people as you advance on and out there, you find that companies pay people to do character profiles for hundreds of thousands of shillings, or actually dollars. People pay quite a bit of money just to do a profile on someone and be able to say that this person, you get the right fit. Is this person the right fit? And yet, quite often, it's also a person doing that. Yeah, thank you. So, I think that's an important aspect of the family, and families in business. I think this tends to be an underutilized resource.
Wow. You guys, I'm in class. But another interesting statistic that I came across, which I thought I should share, is that about only 30%. First of all, the average tenure for family businesses is about 24 years. You guys have crossed that. Only about 30% get to 60 years and 13% are outliers to 90 years. So everything that you're sharing, again, I hope somebody out there who's interested in legacy and passing on this mantle to their children and their children's children is actually taking notes. One last question from me, and then I'll go over to Apollo. I can see that he's already standing up. And that is to do with how this thread now connects from you to your children. I'm sure you've heard about a concept called the clash of the generations. So you'll find that your seniors are coming from perhaps a silent generation, and then they've given birth to baby boomers and millennials, and you guys are giving birth to post-millennials and perhaps a generation that is yet to be known. Now, the way that we conceive of things across those generations is very, very different. We understand things differently. Our grandparents were more commanding and telling, and you do. Children today want to have their own identity. They're on Facebook taking selfies. So you're talking family business, and the person wants to have their own identity, perhaps open up their own line. How do you reconcile that as somebody who's coming from a place that's extremely intentional about making sure that this mantle, actually, this legacy lives on, not only through you, but through your children? We'll go to Aga and then Sabiti very briefly. Then I'll open up to Apollo. Yeah, just very briefly.
Thank you. I think the key is the basics don't change. Yep. The values have to transcend, and because the businesses that have been built are built on those same values, and those values remain, and that doesn't change. So the value system has to remain, but how it's parted on might be a bit different. It might not be the exact same. So the other thing is that the next generation still has to continue to have exposure to these legacies, to these businesses. So they have to continue to make to work in these businesses as youngsters, to be around the businesses, to understand the people who work in the businesses, why are things the way they are, and also to understand most of the time, one of the things that's most important is to understand the changes that are happening in these businesses, because the changes are the ones that are more telling as opposed to the things that are at steady state. Yeah. Education now has, education, especially in new things, is very important. They've got to go out and have a chance at learning new concepts around business, sustainability, and a whole host of new subjects that 20 years ago we were not dealing with. So that's quite important. And the other thing is also to try and get a bit more diversity in experience. Diversity in experience is being able to have a chance to have a chance to work in different contexts and understand sometimes the best of, and also to understand sometimes not just the best of, but even the worst that are in some of these contexts. So you're able to have a deeper appreciation of where we are and what is possible going forward.
Thank you. Sabiti, any comments on that?
Yeah, briefly, and just for the record, I just want to say that I don't want people to misunderstand me. My mother was very much involved in instilling in me the principle of discipline and sticking to something. Yeah, so that you can respect yourself in order for others to respect you. That one I thought I shouldn't leave out, and she's still there looking out, and that's why I've quickly said it, because after this I know. Now, how to impart to today's children? Yes. I think, Aga, you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah. It's a much different environment. It's got so much diversity in it. They are exposed now. Remember, we talked about exposure my time. By that time when I was being exposed, there was not, the internet had probably actually not really settled in Africa. It was still almost an infant thing in the Western world. But now you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have WhatsApp, you have, I don't know, TikTok, you have all those things. And the interaction is international. Sure. And they are interacting with people who are saying at the age of 6, I'm running a business already. Yep. And I'm running the business on YouTube. All I have to do is make sure I have more than 45,000 hits. So I go and do silly things, silly pranks, crack jokes. I get 45,000 hits. I get money. So it's not, they're not constrained like I would say during our time. There's much more open. But there are two things I consider in that kind of scenario. One is enhancing the businesses themselves. I think Aga had alluded to change. One of the things that
Being
I think
aware.
has that is crucial between the 30 and 60
Yes.
years age of any of these family businesses is ability to adapt
Yeah.
to changing environments. And in fact, some of us are in the middle of that. We're trying to make some significant adjustments to keep up and keep going, remaining relevant. But in that, with that same principle, you also widen the scope of opportunities they may have working in the company, or companies for that matter. Create additional opportunities, as I had mentioned, with other investments you'll make along the way. You may want to go into, for example, agriculture. They could get employment in that in various ways, even IT-based ways. There's a lot you have to start think. You have to now really think with
Broadly.
an open and broad mind, so that they can have the opportunity to even though they don't. You see, a family business doesn't have to be run by family members.
Very good point.
So they can actually get employed elsewhere, build up revenue,
Bring it back
inject capital into the family businesses, and they never really work there at all. So there's also that. So ours is really, it's a tough, but to me I consider it rather challenging and fun to see what will come out of this. It's something I'd like to watch and participate in and see what we can build out of it, because I think that's what we have before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Over to you, Apollo.
Thank you, Rebecca. But in here it is Headmaster Sir. Yes, don't forget the Sir at the end of it. And this one is not even a family business. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And there are quite a number of reactions coming in here. Aga, people asking, did you take up your mother's heart? They want to be adopted. They clearly would need that adoption. And the others are saying, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. When you talk about women, yes, the wives need to come in and become the CEOs in the background. That please keep preaching that. I'm just getting those. Allow me to go to our next poll questions. Our 2 poll questions. If the back office is kind enough to share with us the poll questions, we want to understand what family businesses mean. Why do we need even to ask to do this? So we are saying grade how important it is for you to leave a legacy. We're talking about family businesses as a way of extending legacy, and we want to ask our viewers there that how important is it? Is it not important? Do you not care? Is it important, or it's extremely important? And we are asking them, please grade how important. And the number 2 question there is, what are your reasons, if you feel it is important, for you to engage into legacy planning? This is a multiple answer question, and in a few I'll be reading you the results. So we are asking you, what are the reasons? Some of you, if you said legacy planning is not important, then you have no reasons there. You can tick none. The reasons your children, are the reasons your spouse, are the reasons your grandchildren, are the reasons for you to avoid the repeat of the struggles you had as you were a child, or is it a status symbol for you to engage into legacy planning? What are your reasons? And we are asking our viewers to let us know in the next 5 minutes, 5 seconds. Let me have the results. Please, you can close the poll and let's see the results. Grade the importance of your business. Grade how important it is for you to leave a legacy. No one said it is not important. 1% said they do not care whether they leave a legacy or not. 19% said it is important. And 80% said it is extremely important. So the 80%, it's about 99% who actually said it is important or and extremely important. What are their reasons? And these are the reasons they are giving. These are multiple, so we'll just go with the popularity. So you could pick 3, 4, 5 reasons, but which one was most popularly picked? The reason of not repeating, not having your children repeat the same struggles you went through was the most popular one. It was coming in second was people are doing this for their children. And then the third one came in as people are doing this for their grandchildren. Then competing in the same position, spouse and status symbol are competing in the same position. That is why people are getting into this. So as you get into this discussion, kindly have a hint of what those people are doing. Then one question I want to pass on, the rest we pass on to Rebecca. Do all children, do all siblings in a family business automatically become managers? Do they automatically become managers, directors? That is a question that has come up, and I've seen it like 7 times, and I thought I needed to bring it up. Back to you, Becky.
Thanks a lot, Apollo. I was actually just going to give it to Mr. Director. One of you has MD, the other one has ED, so you're both directors. So tell us. Aga, what are your thoughts? Let me start with Aga. Because Sabiti already shared a model, but he will reiterate.
Yeah. Quite the reverse. I think not everybody is going to become a manager, because not everybody has the requisite skill to be a manager.
Who decides?
Initially, actually, they decide on their own.
Okay.
So very, very, very quickly there is, it is almost, at least I know in our family everybody's got a chance at it, and some people quickly make a choice not to engage. So they will say, maybe I'm not interested, or maybe I would like to do something else, or I would like to, like he said, be a food scientist, or I want to be a full-time farmer on my own, where I'm not bothered by the restrictions of ISO certification and UNBS and having to pass certain tests and all these sorts of things. So I don't want to deal with a very closed system that the companies offer, and so that quickly will eliminate a small number. So somebody else will decide, look, I want to teach, and I enjoy teaching, and I want to be a teacher, and that also, their opportunity doesn't necessarily go away, but it's clearly they have opted not to take their opportunity. Would they be a director? It's also a choice, but an active directorship is for us is a governance role. It's an active role. Somebody has to be doing things on the board of that company, and they've got to be attending meetings. They've got to be reading up on the reports. And even that not everybody will choose to do. So you could be a shareholder, but you might not necessarily be a director, and you definitely don't have to be a manager. So clearly, you might by birth be a shareholder, but you might definitely not be a director, and you might certainly not be a manager.
I think just to repeat, I think one of the reasons why I like that Pareto principle, 20 and 80%. I think the reason why we are seeing that 80% of family businesses have failed is exactly because of reasons like this. That people think that to be a director is just to hold power, and it's fancy. Vis-a-vis, there's a certain skill set needed for you to actually take on this chair, and that's why we're listening to you today. And perhaps people are asking because they've seen those disconnects from one generation to another, because guys are competing for power, as opposed to this business needs a particular skill set and a role fit to take it from point A to point B. Sabiti, I know that you talked a lot about unity and love and teamwork and collaboration, and your father, detailing that for you as siblings. And so I don't know if you have a live example where you had to come to that place on why not Michelle, why not Patricia, why not Michael, why not Miranda, why Sabiti? Or it just came as designed because your father gave you this exposure and your interest showed up?
As I'd said, actually, he exposed everyone. Everyone knew what he was doing. And everyone had a chance. And to be exact, two had an opportunity before I was old enough to be employed or to be working. But the thing is the passion of those two. Julie, the eldest, is a dentist, very passionate about that. As I said, Patricia is a food science technologist who's very successful at it. And they were really science people. Let's look at them first. They were really science-based people. Even then, I'm sure if you ask them now to define what valuation surveying is, what real estate property management is, what estate agency is and everything, they will answer as if they've actually studied it. So the exposure was there. It's just that, of course, the first had career opportunities they saw better suited them. And at the same time, there was also, I'm not saying it was deliberate. It was, to me, I believe it was luck that I sat down and I wanted real estate. Because if I had chosen what I'd initially felt as my passion, which was a career in economics and, you know, being an economic guru, I probably wouldn't have also taken on the mantle. But when I saw that this is an opportunity for me to participate in real estate, of course, ultimately the real estate I really, really dream about is developing it myself. And I believe this is a good pathway in that direction. But while I'm here, I'm happy. I'm okay to be here. I'm willing to be here. I'm ready to take the good, bad, and the ugly of it. And I'm ready to push on and make it grow from strength to strength. I think that's a fortunate thing that can happen. And I don't want people to imagine there is any element of pretense there. This is something that actually just happened, natural almost. But still, I think it is something I'm very much hinged towards letting people express themselves. I think that's what I've been looking for the whole day. Let them express themselves,
and then as a parent,
because
be able to map
then
that
you'll be
interest.
then you'll be able to see
To the
for
required
yourself
skills.
that this person is actually genuinely on this path. And if the path they've chosen is not yours, support them in the one they have. You see, I said that, I pointed out quickly that, and Aga emphasized that point. You don't have to be with the working in the business, even a director on the board, to have an ownership element in the business, in the family business. I can be a very successful movie actor, and I say, oh, I've made $1 million here. I want to push it into this company and see how far I can enhance the company, and then it should reflect my ownership in this company as a member of the family. It can happen. So I don't think it should be looked at so much as when one enters, then it's an automatic thing that everyone is there, and then you bring the dynamics of family management.
And maybe that's why some have failed.
And you see that's probably why, because I've known extreme cases, some very recent, where siblings are fighting directly to frustrate the efforts of the family business or the family efforts, even in investment terms and everything. I know cases, existing cases. It happens that way because they misunderstand how it works.
They misunderstand. They look at the other
works.
part of the equation. You know what? The outcome as opposed to the input. The input is hard work, commitment, right skill, etc., etc. And I think that's what the equation leaves out. So Sabiti, right back to you, circling to if everybody doesn't have to be, if every sibling doesn't have to be a director, do they then have to be shareholders? Is it a given?
Again, no.
It's not a given.
No, not at all.
How does that work?
Let me take you back to a definition of a family business.
Yes.
Is not one which is started by the whole family. It is started by one or two, usually one person, who is willing, because if I start my business, like any other business, if I start, it is me who is willing to offer shares. I can decide, and which is the case in many cases. You know, some old school chaps, they say that this one is mine, I've run this business, when I die I'm going with it. So he doesn't even offer even one little bit of share. There are those who do literally carry out an IPO at home. Yep. And say, kids, bring. Now when they come, what you're quoting is a lot of problems, but there are those cases where someone can do that. But it all hinges upon the person with majority ownership of that business.
In this case, the seniors.
The people who started
Yes.
it, the founding members.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting lessons. I have another one here. It's closely related again to passing on this mantle. And Aga, this one will go to you. How best, I know that Sabiti has covered part of it, but how best do you manage conflict within children in selecting the successor? We didn't hear your story. To carry on the family mantle to the next level. The question keeps circling back.
This is, I think, Rebecca, this is a very, not only a common question, but I think it is the question that creates the most drama in the whole family business journey, and I think it is the one that sometimes puts off a few people from the whole concept of family business, because they envisage conflict first, as opposed to trying to figure out how a certain business is working. I think how is a successor chosen? I think I actually don't even think that there is even something that would be like a day that a successor is chosen. I don't even think that happens. What tends to happen will be, it is a process. It could be many years of work, and it could just get to a point whereby, is this business going to be run professionally? A choice has to be made, because sometimes, even though there might be somebody working in the business, that might not be the most suited person to run the business. You have to understand that ultimately a business sometimes it doesn't run away. It has to create value for its shareholders. Its shareholders have to see gains. They have to see some growth. They have to see some dividend if that's what they want. Family businesses tend to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to dividends, so they tend to be a bit more about growth and the value of the business. The business doing better than it was doing last year. Is it still making a good margin? Is it still got good place in the market? It's got a good reputation in the market. Tends to be more important. But a time comes and it is just I would say automatic. It just you just find that there is that one person who's been there and who's been active in the business. With some cases and a lot of colleagues of mine where there is several what you would call several contenders for the top position. Yeah. And this is also not unusual, but with a bit of planning, and I think part of what this conversation is around, which is legacy planning, what tends to happen will be, are there different things that people are good at? Are two people compatible if they are going to work as a partnership, as opposed to is there a third person who is poor for the mix? It may be that third person maybe can do something completely different if there is something different that they can do. So it always not exactly about choosing the one person, but sometimes it's about choosing a combination of people to do different things within the mix of things. So families offer that. Families sometimes offer that breadth in terms of people that can do different things, and if people are cooperative, it tends to be easier.
You could even find a case where there's no proper fit among your children, yes, and you have to go outside for them. Depending, again, I think the lesson for me is that you have to go back to the vision bearer. What do they see? Do they see this business outliving them 100 years, 200 years? What does it mean? Are they going to run it professionally? Are they just going to put their children because they want their name tagged to that business, etc., etc., etc.? So this one I think is specific to AGA. I need to understand the dynamics of business politics. Where do you marry politics and business, and how do you chart a path for success? politics both within the business and outside of the business in the environment. I was once a vanilla farmer, and I think the industry has been sustained by an ability to balance political and business acumen by the secular laws.
Okay. I would try to dig a bit, but I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess a little bit around when reference to politics. Is that politics? Is this our, is that your national type politics, or is this internal, what they call, what do you call internal politics within a business, or internal politics within people? There is two levels there that come to mind. Let me first deal with the internal one, because I think that that's probably, I don't know much about politics on the other side. That one is not I'm not very familiar with, so I will deal with the internal politics, because that I think I understand a little bit. The issues around, I think, two problems that I think tend to be a challenge. One is open communication within the firm itself, and two, what sometimes appears as an aspect of favoritism vis-a-vis having a proper system of evaluation and what we would call delivery, people who are able to deliver the objectives of the company. And I think, so if a person who is not delivering is the person that appears to be the one who is advancing within the business, that's normally where the reference of politics sometimes comes from, as opposed to having a system whereby the people who are delivering, who are meeting their objectives, who are meeting their targets, are the ones who advance within the business. And I think it becomes especially complicated if they are family members, and family members sometimes doesn't necessarily mean siblings or owner, founders, offspring directly, but it could be cousins, it could be distant relatives who are in the business. I think one of the things that has to happen and fairly early on is as a business you've got to we lay out clearly for the business. Are we going to have a sputtering of very, very distant relatives? Are we going to have people come in without merit? And if you choose a system that says the business is going to be run on a pure merit, on a merit basis, you tend to first and foremost set aside, you set aside quite a bit of that whole internal politics. I think in any system, in anywhere, and be an aspect of politics, but can you heal that issue? Can you deal with some of those things quickly once they start to arise? Sometimes it could be lower down in the company. A company that is quite hierarchical could quickly have, could it be a supervisor, and the supervisor maybe does on his hand, maybe is not affair within himself. So what is it? Are you able to spot these? Are you able to spot these relationships, manage them, nip them in the bud, or at least correct the damage that might be done? That tends to deal with the internal politics. The internal politics. Like I said, external politics is a little bit different, but I think I will leave Shem. Maybe he deals with a little bit more politics working in the city. He might be able to tell us a little bit more. How do you deal with politics? Yes, external politics and the environment.
Thank you, Aga, for throwing that one at me. And let me make it abundantly clear. There is a lot that I saw happening in politics with my father. And to an extent, we both agree, both me and him, in fact the family, everyone agrees that it probably dragged the speed of development of business. And it's not that I have anything against politics, but I encourage people that when you are going to do business, you only get politics or external politics, as you'd have it, to be a factor that you consider in business where it is completely unavoidable. But you want to focus on what you're delivering, what you're producing, what your business is supposed to be doing. And the political thing, yeah, watch it closely. And for some of us in the professional field, there are certain things where we've actually now come out to talk, because we believe that the political decision may not have very good impact on the industry. And that's why I'm saying it's absolutely unavoidably necessary there for us to now say, no, you need to do this. But there's also the correct way of doing it. Yeah. There are structures in place where you can appeal to various bodies along the way till you build up to a certain point. What I would discourage is that usual politics, as you know, influence kind of peddling kind of politics. If you let that one fiddle with your business, I think you are risking a lot for the business. So that for me is the take I have. I'm very cautious about that and very conscious about it at the same time.
Thank you, Sabiti. We only have a few minutes, so I'll just run straight to the two questions left, and I'll give this one to you still. How do I control costs to sustain business for a longer period beyond 15 years?
Best adoption early in time. Adoption of the best financial management practices.
We are back to professionalism.
So it's inevitable.
Yes.
Fine. You see, when you're managing a business, the management of the finance of that business, you don't have to reinvent a wheel. It's the best practices are very clear. They're out there. What usually creates the comparison between performances of even exactly identical companies is how they apply or implement. And then again, the analysis of how your performance is moving. Are you projecting your business accurately? Are you looking out for certain areas events that may occur that could affect your revenue, or for that matter, the cost you will have to incur to continue in business? So it's the textbook financial management skills must be learned. And not only learned, the harder part of it is the implementation. Which we all struggle through. Even these major corporate firms, you find they do fall, they trip up on the same thing. So it's not an easy thing to implement consistently, but it's important to understand those skills and implement them in the business as regularly and consistently as you can.
As possible. Thank you, Aga. My last question from Lilian Nabidie. It's coming back. It's just circling around mantles, moving from one generation to another. But in the African culture, and I can actually relate to this question, how do you handle family business, especially in a polygamous family setting with a lot of conflict? How would you help, Nabidie?
That's not an easy setting. Certainly it's not an easy setting. I think the polygamous setting, if for success easily, without a doubt, the offspring of the polygamous family have to be at least united without being in conflict. I think that unfortunately, if they are conflict ridden from the beginning, then it's very hard to unite. It's very hard to unite the family at that point in time, and I think that then you start from 3, 4, 5 steps behind, and it tends to be easier then to figure out another type of transition, as opposed to passing on a mantle to one of these conflicting offspring that you're dealing with. However, if conditions allow, I think that the head of the family has to ensure that at least the key members of the family see more in common as opposed to seeing their differences. If you can get more of a common, then at least they might be able to see a common vision. And I think one of the most important things that Nabide needs to understand is sometimes it won't work. And also that also needs to be accepted that, in this particular setting, this is going to be very difficult. This is going to end up, we're going to end up in a situation where perhaps we're going to have to devolve. We're going to have to break up a few things. That is also an arrangement. You've touched on something, and I just thought that I would spend a minute to talk about it because I think it is quite a common question.
Yeah.
It is the myth, and you touched on it twice, the myth that is called from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. I think that's the topic that you were talking about, that Jaja Wange Ali Mugaga. I think that's, unfortunately, I think that it's been proven over time that predominantly actually that it is a myth. It is said a lot, but it is not necessarily true. And one of the things that a lot of research has been done about this, and it's been found in some towns that when they check from as far back as the 1400s, who are the largest taxpayers, those names are still present, are still appearing. A large number of names are still appearing where there's still people in those families. I think what happens is that the wealth might become different. It might not be a business with coffee, but you're educated.
Yes.
You have a very high profile job. You are actually quite, you have a position which you wouldn't have had if you born in some remote village somewhere. So the truth of the matter is that there is wealth, but the wealth has converted to something else. So it is important not to think about it that it will remain in the same form forever, but is to think about that there will be changes even to the wealth and the nature of the wealth. So I think it's important to speak to that, because it also speaks to the question is, will it always be in the same form? Will it be the same real estate portfolio that will pass on? There were 5 shopping centers that they passed on as 5 shopping. No, maybe not. Yeah. They might be sold off, and people then move on to residential. They might be sold off, and people move on to doing coffee. It is a conversion that can happen. So it's important to understand that a lot of the times this wealth sometimes is converted into an investment into human capital, and these people they become civil servants. They're well educated professors, and etc. So don't despair, because it is not all lost. There is still there is still something that is still there. It might not be in the form that you think about.
And I'm glad that you've said it, because even as I was thinking about today and the success and failure factors for people passing on that mantle, what was key for me is that once we understand that it's legacy, then we can take that thought beyond just family business, and you bring it out quite well. I think I have one more. I think we're done. Yes. So I just want to ask the gentlemen if people were distracted during this session, or if they were excited and took in everything, but they just want to go with that one thing, that if they didn't hear anything else, what's that one thing that you'd leave with our audience today?
Thank you very much. I think if I would like to send a message to the audience, there are 2 things I'd like them to go and sit and think about that may help them understand how to leave a legacy. The first is humility.
We are back to values.
Do not get excited about this entitlement, and I'm sorry to use the word, but the entitlement nonsense. I think people have misunderstood what entitlement is, and they've taken it to another level, and that's because they do not know how to practice humility. Second thing is, you're not it's not about being rich,
Okay.
but being wealthy. And I would like to just fall back on what Aga quickly had mentioned about Becca.
Yes.
Your grandfather was rich, but my dear, you are wealthy. There is a huge difference, but he may have had cows and land, but he did not have the wherewithal to put together this kind of arrangement where we're going to discuss legacy. To me, you are wealthy, he's rich, but you are wealthy. So I don't know if people understand the difference of that. It is not so much what you think it is. Please go sit down, change your mindset, forget about this entitlement thing, get into humility, understand how it works, and look at what it is your purpose on this earth is. Usually the answer is related in a lot of spiritual and religious things, but today that's not why I'm here, but that's a very good point of reference I think I'd want to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabiti. Aga, I won't say anything about what you said, Aga.
Well, I think I'll leave it with one thing. I think that it's important that all of you who've joined us this afternoon, just to understand that not everyone is going to do business. Some will teach, some will build, some will and some will do different things. So it's important to understand that, and then as you think through your legacy, it might not be that it's going to be in business, and it might not be that maybe your offspring are going to do business. So to me, I think that that's important, and once you come to that realization and acceptance, then it is from there that it becomes one where you have to again search deeper for what is your purpose, how to understand it, how to optimize it, and how to derive the true wealth that comes from that. To me, those are my parting thoughts.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so very, very, very much. I didn't think that we would be talking values the first time you see family business as a legacy, but I'm glad that we have gotten to this point. If there's one thing I've taken away from all this, I've taken away so many things, but if there's one thing I've taken away from all this, I would like to borrow from a book that I like a lot, and it says, a man that does right, because you've said so many things that touch on values, teamwork, love, kindness, vision. Like, we're not talking hard cash, moving from one bank account to another, or being signed on wills and testaments, but for me, it's that statement. You guys have compounded it, that a man that does right, or a good man, leaves wealth to his children's children. And that for me is key. So the biggest takeaway from me is that legacy as a mindset, whether it's in a family business, or whether it's just passing on certain values and skills to your children that will outlive you. And I'll go back to that statement that I like very much, but this time differently, because you guys have challenged my thinking, that for those of you who are listening out there, and for our children, we should get to a place where people say that, you know what, I had my Jaja Aga, I had my Jaja Sabiti, Nalinayo Jaja Becky, and because of them, I understand that, it's more than just family business, it's more than just being rich. It's about values, just having the right values and passing them to your children and your children's children, and leaving them at block 5 in understanding wealth. So thank you so very much, and I hope that you do have your secret recipe. And again, may we thrive in this marketplace and not just survive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Smart 24, driving business.